Dr. Hyansu pressed his face against the porthole of the deep-sea vessel. The darkness outside was complete, broken only by the bright beams of their searchlights cutting through the water. They were 3 miles below the surface of the Pacific, ocean deeper than most humans had ever gone. Reading some strange formations down there, Captain Yoonji called from the pilot's seat. Her hands moved smoothly over the controls as she guided their small submarine through the crushing depths. The sonar is picking up something big. Hyansu turned to look at the sonar display. Green lines swept across the screen, showing the ocean floor below them. There was definitely something there, something that did not belong in the natural underwater landscape. "Take us down another 200 meters, he said. His voice carried the excitement he tried to hide. After 20 years of studying the ocean floor, he had learned not to get his hopes up too quickly. Most discoveries turned out to be nothing. More than unusual rock formations or old SHIP treks. Dr. Borum looked up from her equipment panel. She was the newest member of their team, a specialist in studying ancient civilizations. Her job was to examine anything they found and determine how old it might be. "The readings are definitely artificial," she said, checking her instruments. "Whatever is down there, it was made by someone." The submarine continued its descent. Outside, strange deep-sea creatures swam past their lights. Fish with glowing bodies and tentacles that seemed to wave at them in the darkness. This was a world that few humans had ever seen. "There it is," Yoonji whispered. Below them, emerging from the mud and sediment of the ocean floor, was the outline of something impossible. It was clearly a ship, but unlike any ship they had ever seen. The hull was smooth and curved, made of some dark material that seemed to absorb their lights rather than reflect them. Hyansu felt his heart racing. "How big is it?" "100 meters long," Yoonji replied. "Maybe more. Most of it is still buried." The ship had a strange beauty to it. Its design was elegant and flowing, as if it had been grown rather than built. There were no sharp angles or rough edges. Everything curved smoothly into everything else. "Look at those symbols," Borum said, pointing to markings visible on the Borum. Exposed portion of the hull, Hyansu stared at the symbols. They were carved deep into the hull material, and they definitely were not from any human civilization he knew. The markings were complex, with flowing lines and geometric patterns that seemed to follow some kind of mathematical logic. "Never seen anything like this," he said. "These symbols do not match any known ancient language." Yoonji maneuvered the submarine closer to the ship. As they approached, their lights revealed more details. The hull showed no signs of damage from the crushing pressure of the deep ocean. Whatever material it was made from, it was incredibly strong. "We need to get samples," Hyansu said. "And we need to find a way inside." Inside, Borum looked nervous. "Are you sure that is safe?" "We have to try," Hyansu replied. This could be the discovery of the century. They spent the next hour examining the exterior of the ship. The hull was completely smooth, except for the strange symbols. There were no obvious doors or windows, no engines or propulsion systems that they could identify. "Wait," Yoonji said suddenly. "I think I found something." She pointed to a section of the hull where the symbols seemed to form a pattern around a circular area. The circle was about 2 meters across, and the symbols around it were different from the others. "It might be some kind of hatch," she said. Hyansu studied the area carefully. The symbols around the circle did seem to be pointing toward it, as if they were instructions or warnings. "Let me try the hull cutter," he said. The submarine was equipped with a powerful laser that could cut through most materials. Hyansu aimed it at the edge of the circular area and activated it. To his surprise, the laser seemed to have no effect on the whole material. The beam simply disappeared into the dark surface without leaving any mark. "That is impossible," he said. "This laser can cut through steel." "Maybe we are approaching this wrong," Borum suggested. "If this is really an ancient ship, maybe the hatch opens from the inside." Hyansu was about to reply when something incredible happened. The circular area began to glow with a soft blue light. The symbols around it started to pulse in sequence, as if responding to their presence. "What did you do?" Yoonji asked, her voice tense. "Nothing," Hyunsu replied. I just pointed the laser at it. The glowing grew brighter, and then the circular section of the hull began to move. It rotated slowly, revealing that it was indeed a hatch. As it opened, they could see into a chamber filled with the same blue light. The atmosphere inside is breathable, Bjorn said, checking her instruments. Oxygen and nitrogen, just like Earth? How is that possible? Youngji asked. I do not know, Hyunsu admitted, but we are going to find out. They carefully maneuvered the submarine into the opening. The chamber was large enough to hold their vessel with room to spare. As they entered, the hatch closed behind them, sealing them inside. The chamber began to fill with water, equalizing the pressure. Then, to their amazement, the water began to drain away. Within minutes, they were sitting in a breathable atmosphere inside an ancient ship at the bottom of the ocean. This is impossible, Youngji said. This ship has been down here for thousands of years. How can it still have power? Hyunsu was already putting on his diving suit. Only one way to find out, he said. They opened the hatch of their submarine and stepped into the chamber. The air was clean and fresh, with a slight metallic taste. The walls were covered with more of the strange symbols, and there were passages leading deeper into the ship. Look at this, Bjorn said, examining the wall. These symbols are not just decorative, they seem to be some kind of writing system. As they explored further, they made more incredible discoveries. The corridors were filled with strange technology that still seemed to be functioning. Soft lights came on as they walked, as if the ship was aware of their presence. They found chambers filled with equipment they could not identify. There were screens showing star charts of constellations they did not recognize. There were containers holding objects that seemed to be made of materials that did not exist on Earth. But the most shocking discovery was in the deepest chamber they could reach. There, preserved in some kind of transparent case, they found skeletal remains. The skeleton was clearly humanoid, but different from modern humans. It was taller, with longer limbs and a larger skull. But the basic structure was unmistakably human. This changes everything, Hyunsu whispered, as they stood there. Staring at the ancient remains, something began to happen. The symbols on the walls started to glow brighter. A low humming sound filled the chamber. We should go, Youngji said nervously, but it was too late. The ship was awakening after thousands of years of sleep. Deep in its core, ancient systems were coming online, and somewhere in the darkness of space, something was listening for a signal that was about to be sent. 3 weeks had passed since the discovery of the ancient ship. Admiral Sujin stood in the command center of Earth's orbital defense station, watching the monitors with growing concern. The signal that had been sent from the deep-sea vessel had traveled into space, and now something was coming back. We have multiple contacts approaching from the outer solar system, reported Lieutenant Kongho from his position at the sensor station. They are moving fast, much faster than any known Earth technology. Admiral Sujin felt her stomach tighten. This was the moment they had all feared since the signal was detected. First contact with an alien species, and they had no idea whether these visitors came in peace or war. How many ships? She asked. 17 confirmed contacts, ma'am. The largest appears to be over 3 kilometers long. On Earth below, Ambassador Woyoung was preparing for what might be the most important diplomatic mission in human history. He had been chosen to represent humanity because of his skills in communication and his calm personality. Now, as he looked out at the stars, he wondered if those skills would be enough. The alien fleet had been detected moving through space at incredible speed. They had sent no messages, made no attempts to communicate. They simply flew straight toward Earth as if they knew exactly where they were going. Sir, his aide said, entering the room. The fleet will arrive in 6 hours. The military wants to know if we should prepare for battle. Wei-young shook his head. No. If they wanted to destroy us, they would have done it already. Ships that advanced could have attacked us from much farther away. As the hours passed, tension grew throughout the solar system. Every military base was on high alert. Civilian populations were being moved to underground shelters. The world held its breath and waited. Admiral Sujin watched through the observation. deck as the alien ships appeared in the distance. They were beautiful in a way that took her breath away. The vessels were sleek and elegant, with hulls that seemed to shimmer with their own light. They moved through space with a grace that no human ship had ever achieved. "They are slowing down," reported Lieutenant Concho, approaching in formation. The lead ship was massive, easily the size of a small city. It had long, flowing lines that reminded Admiral Sujin of the ancient vessel they had found beneath. The ocean, the similarity was too obvious to ignore. "Ma'am, we are receiving a transmission," the communications officer announced. "Put it through," Admiral Sujin ordered. The main screen flickered and then showed the interior of the alien ship. Standing in the center of the view was a figure that made everyone in the command center gasp in surprise. The being was clearly not human, but it was remarkably similar to a human. It stood about 7 feet tall, with long, thin limbs and pale skin that had a slight silver tint. Its face was narrow and elegant, with large eyes that seemed to hold ancient wisdom. But the basic structure was unmistakably humanoid. "Greetings, children of the lost world," the being said. The words came through in perfect English, though it was clear that some kind of translation device was being used. "I am Commander Taman of the Corvani Empire. We have traveled far to find you." Admiral Sujin stepped forward. "This is Admiral Sujin of the Earth Defense Force. We welcome you to our solar system. But we must ask about your intentions, Commander." Taman smiled, and the expression was surprisingly warm and familiar. "We come not as conquerors, but as family returning home. The signal we received came from one of our ancestor ships. We have been searching for you for many thousands of years." The words sent a shock through everyone listening. Family? Ancestors? What did this alien commander mean? "I think there may be some mistake," Admiral Sujin said carefully. "We are humans from Earth. We have no connection to your people. But you do, Commander," Taman replied. "The ship you found beneath your oceans, it belongs to our shared heritage. Long ago, before your world developed its current civilizations, our peoples were one." On Earth, Ambassador Wu Yang was watching the transmission with growing amazement. The implications of what the alien commander was saying were staggering. If it was true, it would change everything humans thought they knew about their origins. "Commander Taman," he said, stepping into view of the transmission. "Right. I am Ambassador Wu Yang, representing the people of Earth. We would be honored to learn more about this shared heritage you speak of." Commander Taman nodded respectfully. "We would be honored to share our knowledge with you. But first we must show you proof of what I claim." The alien commander gestured, and the image changed to show what appeared to be a vast library, or archive. The walls were covered with star charts, historical records, and images of beings that looked remarkably like humans. "These are the records of our homeworld, Veltar," Commander Taman explained. "Long ago, our people lived together on that world. But a great disaster forced us to flee in all directions across the galaxy. The images showed a beautiful planet with blue oceans and green continents, cities that seemed to grow from the landscape, itself filled with beings that looked like a mixture of humans and the Corvani. Some of our people came to your world, Commander," Taman continued. "They were forced to start over, to survive in a harsh environment. Over many thousands of years, they became what you now call humans. And your people," Ambassador Wu Yang asked. "We found a world that allowed us to develop our technology, to preserve our knowledge. We have spent the centuries since then, searching for our lost brothers and sisters." Admiral Sujin felt her mind reeling. If this was true, then humans were not alone in the universe. They had family among the stars. "You say you have been searching for us," she said. "How did you know where to look?" Commander Taman smiled. "Sadly, we have been following the paths of the ancient colony ships for millennia. Many led to dead worlds or to places where our people did not survive, but we never gave up hope." "And the signal from the ship?" Ambassador Wu Yang asked. "It was a beacon designed to activate when the ship was found by our descendants. It contained the location of your world and proof of your identity. The transmission continued for several more hours." Commander Taman explained that the Corvani had developed into a peaceful but advanced civilization. They had contact with many species across the galaxy, but had never found anything as precious as their lost family. "We do not come to conquer, or to rule," he said. "We come to reunite with our kinfolk, to share our knowledge and learn from your experiences." As the day ended, both species began to realize that they were no longer alone in the universe. The humans had found cousins among the stars, and the Corvani had finally located their lost brothers and sisters. But neither species knew that far across the galaxy, another group of beings had detected the reunion. The Nexari, ancient enemies of the Veltari, were preparing for war. The discovery of the lost kinfolk meant that their oldest foes were gathering strength again. The peaceful reunion was about to become something much more dangerous. Dr. Hiram stared at the genetic analysis results on her screen for the third time. The data was so incredible that she had to keep checking to make sure she had not made a mistake. In the laboratory aboard the Corvani mothership, she was comparing human DNA with samples from the ancient ship. "This is impossible," she whispered to herself. Scholar Dongwook, the Corvani historian working beside her, looked up from his own research. His tall, silver-skinned form moved gracefully as he approached her workstation. "What have you discovered?" he asked. His voice carried the musical quality that all Corvani possessed. "The genetic markers," Dr. Hiram said, pointing to the screen. "The skeletal remains from the ship show clear genetic links to both modern humans and your people. But the age of the remains suggests they are much older than any human civilization." Scholar Dongwook nodded slowly. "This matches what we have found in the historical records, but the full truth is even more remarkable than we first believed." Over the past 2 weeks, teams of human and Corvani scientists had been working together to unlock the secrets of the ancient ship. The vessel had been carefully raised from the ocean floor and was now being studied in a specially built facility. Dr. Yuna, a comparative biologist, entered the laboratory carrying a tablet filled with new data. She had been examining the ship's biological samples and cultural artifacts. "I have been analyzing the preserved organic materials from the ship," she announced. "The results are extraordinary. These beings were not exactly human or Corvani, but something that could have evolved into both." The 3 scientists gathered around a large display screen. Scholar Dongwook activated it, showing star charts and historical records that had been decoded from the ship's memory banks. "The records tell a story that our people have preserved in legend for thousands of years," he explained. "Long ago, there was a world called Veltar. It was the homeworld of our common ancestors." The screen showed images of Veltar as it had been 50,000 years ago. The planet was beautiful, with vast oceans and continents covered in forests and cities. The beings who lived there looked like a blend of human and Corvani features. "What?" "Original Veltari were explorers and scientists," Scholar Dongwook continued. "They had developed space travel and had begun to explore nearby star systems. But they also loved their homeworld, and most chose to stay there." Dr. Hiram studied the images carefully. "What happened to them?" "Disaster," Scholar Dongwook said simply. "The records speak of a great catastrophe that threatened to destroy their world. The Veltari had only months to prepare for the end of their civilization." The display changed to show technical diagrams of colony ships. They were similar in design to the vessel found beneath Earth's ocean, but much larger. "They built as many colony ships as they could," Scholar Dongwook explained. "Each ship was sent to a different star system, carrying groups of survivors who would try to establish new colonies." Dr. Yuna pointed to one of the diagrams. "This matches the ship we found. Must have been one of the colony vessels." "Yes," Scholar Dongwook confirmed. "The ship you discovered was carrying a small group of Veltari who were meant to establish a colony on your world. But something went wrong." The display showed the ship's final voyage. It had reached Earth's solar system successfully, but had encountered some kind of technical failure. The ship had crashed into Earth's ocean, and most of its passengers had not survived. "But some did survive," Dr. Hiram said, understanding what the evidence was showing her. "The few survivors made it to your world's surface," Scholar Dongwook said. "They had lost their technology, their ships, their civilization. They had to start over as primitive beings, learning to survive in a harsh new environment. And they became the ancestors of modern humans, Dr. Yuna added. While other colony ships found different worlds, Scholar Dongwook continued. My people, the Corvani, were descendants of survivors who reached a world that allowed them to maintain their technology and knowledge. We were able to preserve the old ways and continue to develop. The implications were staggering. Humans and Corvani were not just similar species, they were literally cousins, descended from the same original people. But what caused the disaster? On Veltar. Dr. Hiram asked. Scholar Dongwook's expression grew dark. That is the most troubling part of the records. The disaster was not natural. It was caused by another species, a hostile empire that saw the Veltari as a threat. The display showed new images, these ones much more disturbing. It depicted beings that looked nothing like humans or Corvani. These creatures were tall and angular, with bodies that seemed to be made of crystalline material. Their faces were sharp and cruel, with eyes that glowed with cold light. The Nexari scholar Dongwook said, his voice filled with ancient fear, they are a silicon-based species that has existed for millions of years. They view organic life as inferior and dangerous. Dr. Yuna felt a chill run down her spine. Are they still out there? Yes, Scholar Dongwook replied. They control vast regions of the galaxy. They have been the enemy of every peaceful species they have encountered. The record showed the final days of Veltar. The Nexari had attacked. Without warning, using weapons that could destroy entire continents. The Veltari had fought back, but they were unprepared for such ruthless aggression. The Veltari were scientists and explorers, Scholar Dongwook explained. They were not a military people. They had no experience with such warfare. But they managed to save some of their people, Dr. Hiram said. Yes, the colony ships escaped just before the final attack. But Veltar itself was destroyed along with most of its population. The display showed the final moments of the homeworld. Oh. The planet's surface was burning, its oceans boiling away. The great cities that had stood for thousands of years were reduced to ash and rubble. The Nexari believed they had destroyed the Veltari completely, Scholar Dongwook said. They did not know about the colony ships. And now? Dr. Yuna asked. Now they know, Scholar Dongwook replied grimly. The signal that brought us to your world was detected by their monitoring systems. They know that the descendants of the Veltari have survived and are reuniting. Dr. Hiram felt her heart sink. What does that mean for us? It means that the ancient war is about to begin again, Scholar Dongwook said. The Nexari will not allow the children of Veltar to rise again. They will come to finish what they started 50,000 years ago. But we are not the same people. Who lived on Veltar? Dr. Yuna protested. We have evolved, changed, adapted. That will not matter to them, Scholar Dongwook replied. In their eyes, we are still the same threat that they tried to eliminate long ago. The three scientists stood in silence, absorbing the full weight of what they had learned. Humanity had found its place in the universe, discovered its origins. Among the stars. But that discovery had also awakened an ancient enemy that would stop at nothing to destroy them. How long do we have? Dr. Hiram asked. Scholar Dongwook consulted his instruments. Our long-range sensors are detecting movement in the outer regions of the galaxy. Based on their previous patterns, the Nexari will need several months to gather their forces and travel here. Then we have time to prepare, Dr. Yuna said. Yes, Scholar Dongwook agreed. But we must use that time wisely. The Nexari are more powerful than they were 50,000 years ago. If we are to survive, humans and Corvani must work together as our ancestors never could. As the three scientists continued their work, decoding more secrets from the ancient ship, they knew that they were not just studying the past. They were preparing for a war that would determine the future of both their species. Captain Ji-Woo gripped the controls of humanity's first interstellar warship as alarms blared throughout the bridge. The ship, built with combined human and Corvani technology, shuddered under the impact of enemy fire. Through the viewscreen, she could see the massive crystalline vessels of the Nexari fleet approaching Earth. Shields down to 60%, reported Lieutenant Dalho from his position at the weapons console. They are hitting us with some kind of energy weapon we have never seen before. The attack had come without warning. 3 months after the discovery of humanity's true origins, the Nexari had arrived in overwhelming force. Their fleet consisted of hundreds of ships, each one larger and more powerful than anything humans or Corvani had ever built. "Return fire," Captain Jiwoo ordered. Their lead ships. The human Corvani hybrid weapon systems activated, sending streams of energy toward the enemy vessels. The shots struck the crystalline hulls of the Nexari ships, but seemed to have little effect. The alien vessels continued their approach, their weapons charging for another attack. On the Corvani homeworld, General Kung Su stood in the command center watching the battle unfold. The elderly Corvani military leader had spent his entire career preparing for this moment, knowing that someday the ancient enemy would return. "The human fleet is fighting bravely," he observed, watching the tactical displays, "but they are outnumbered 10-1. His aide, a young Corvani officer named Hei-1, looked up from her instruments. "Sir, we are receiving reports from across the galaxy. The Nexari are attacking multiple worlds simultaneously. This is not just an assault on Earth and our homeworld. This is total war." General Kyung-soo nodded grimly. "They mean to finish what they started 50,000 years ago. They will not stop until every descendant of the Veltari is destroyed." Above Earth, the battle was going badly for the defenders. The Nexari ships were not only more numerous, but their technology was far more advanced. Their weapons could pierce through the strongest shields, and their hulls seemed nearly impossible to damage. Captain Jiwoo watched as another human ship exploded under enemy fire. The crew of 200 people gone in an instant. She felt anger building inside her, but forced herself to remain calm. Anger would not help them win this fight. Captain Lieutenant Dalho called out, "I am reading something strange about their weapon patterns. The Nexari ships seem to be focusing their attacks on specific targets." "What kind of targets?" Captain Jiwoo asked. "Ships with human crews," Dalho replied. "They are ignoring some of the Corvani vessels and concentrating on destroying anything with humans aboard." This was disturbing news. It suggested that the Nexari had some way of detecting which ships contained humans and were deliberately targeting them. "They remember us," Captain Jiwoo realized. Even after 50,000 years, they remember that humans were the survivors who crashed on Earth. The Nexari overlord Vekthar stood on the bridge of his massive command ship, observing the battle with cold satisfaction. His crystalline body gleamed in the light of the ship's energy cores, and his glowing eyes tracked the movements of the enemy fleet. "The primitive descendants fight better than expected," he noted to his subordinates. "But they are still weak. Their technology is thousands of years behind ours." One of his officers, a tall Nexari warrior named Zekmer, approached him. "Overlord, we are detecting unusual energy signatures from some of the enemy vessels. Humans appear to be using Corvani technology, but in ways that our records do not indicate are possible." Vekthar turned his attention to the tactical displays. He could see what his officer meant. The human ships were indeed using Corvani weapons and shields, but they were modifying them in real time, adapting them to be more effective against Nexari defenses. "Interesting," he mused. "The crash survivors have developed adaptation skills that the original Veltari did not possess. Should we be concerned?" Zekmer asked. "No," Vekthar replied. "Adaptation without adequate technology is meaningless. They may surprise us with clever tactics, but they cannot overcome our superior firepower." Back on Earth, Captain Jiwoo was proving the Nexari overlord wrong. She had noticed that the enemy ships had a brief vulnerability when they recharged. Their main weapons, it was only a few seconds, but it was enough. "All ships, focus your fire on the lead enemy vessel," she ordered over the communication system. "Wait for my signal, then hit them with everything we have." The human and Corvani ships moved into position. They took heavy damage as they approached, but they held their formation. Captain Jiwoo watched the enemy ship's weapon systems carefully, waiting for the right moment. "Now," she shouted. Every allied ship in the area opened fire simultaneously. The combined energy barrage struck the Nexari vessel just as its defenses were weakest. For a moment, nothing happened. Then cracks appeared in the crystalline hull, spreading rapidly across the entire ship. the Nexari vessel exploded in a brilliant flash of light. It was the first enemy ship to be destroyed in the battle, and the victory sent a surge of hope through the defending forces. "We can hurt them," Captain Ji-woo said with satisfaction. "They are not invincible." But the celebration was short-lived. The destruction of one ship only seemed to anger the Nexari fleet. They began attacking with even greater fury, their weapons systems overloading as they poured fire into the defending ships. General Kung Su watched the battle reports coming in from across the galaxy. The news was not good. The Nexari were winning on every front, their superior numbers and technology overwhelming the combined human Corvani forces. "We need a new strategy," he told his staff. "Traditional space combat will not work against them. We need to find their weaknesses." "Sir," Officer Haewon said, "we are receiving reports that human pilots are showing unusual effectiveness when paired with our technology. They seem to be able to interface with our systems in ways that even we cannot." This was intriguing news. General Kung Su had noticed that human crews were adapting to Corvani technology much faster than expected. They seemed to have an intuitive understanding of how the systems worked. "Prepare to implement Protocol 7, he ordered. "We are going to try something that has never been done before." Protocol 7 was a desperate plan that had been developed during the preparation for the Nexari return. It involved creating joint human Corvani crews on the most advanced ships. With humans serving as pilots and Corvani providing technical support above Earth's moon, the plan was about to be tested. Captain Ji-woo received orders to dock with a massive Corvani battleship. She would take command of the vessel, with a mixed crew of both species. "Are you sure about this?" Lieutenant Dalho asked as they approached the alien ship. "We have never operated anything this large. We'll have to try," Captain Ji-woo replied. "If we keep fighting the way we have been, we will lose." The transfer went smoothly, and soon Captain Ji-woo found herself on the bridge of the most advanced warship in the Corvani fleet. The systems were incredibly complex, but somehow she understood how they worked. It was as if the technology was responding to her thoughts. "All systems are online," reported the Corvani technical officer. "The ship is ready for combat." Captain Ji-woo smiled as she felt the power of the great ship flowing through her. The Nexari had superior numbers and technology, but they had made one crucial mistake. They had underestimated the descendants of the survivors they had tried to destroy long ago. "Let us show them what the children of Veltar can do when they work together," she said. The battle for Earth was about to enter a new phase, one that would determine the fate of both species. Major Inho felt the Corvani battleship respond to his thoughts as if it were part of his own body. The massive vessel twisted through space with impossible grace, dodging the crystalline spears of Nexari weapons fire. Around him, his mixed crew of humans and Corvani worked together with a harmony that amazed even themselves. "Target their weapon clusters," he ordered. And the ship's systems seemed to anticipate his commands before he finished speaking. Dr. Sang-mi watched the battle from the research station deep within the ship. She had been studying the strange connection between human minds and Corvani technology for weeks, trying to understand how it was possible. "The neural patterns are incredible," she reported to Admiral Junasio over the communication link. "When humans interface with Corvani systems, their brain activity increases by 300%. It is as if the technology is unlocking parts of their minds that were previously dormant." Admiral Junasio stood on the bridge of the joint fleet command ship, watching the battle unfold across multiple star systems. The war had been raging for 2 months, and slowly the tide was beginning to turn. The secret was the human Corvani hybrid crews that had been deployed on the most advanced ships. "How many ships do we have operating with mixed crews now?" he asked his aide. 47, sir," Lieutenant Choram replied. "And every one of them is performing far above expectations. The Nexari have lost more ships in the past week than in the entire previous month." The discovery had been made by accident. When Captain Ji-woo first took command of the Corvani battleship, the ship's systems had somehow bonded with her neural patterns. The result was a level of control and precision that no Corvani pilot had ever achieved. "It is the survival instinct," Dr. Sang-mi explained to the command staff during a brief strategy meeting. Humans spent 50,000 years adapting to a hostile environment. Our brains developed the ability to quickly understand and use new tools for survival. The Corvani technology responds to that same instinct. On the bridge of his command ship, Major Inho demonstrated this ability perfectly. As three Nexari vessels approached from different angles, he did not give separate orders to different weapon systems. Instead, he simply focused on the desired outcome, and the ship's computers interpreted his intentions flawlessly. The port weapons engaged the first attacker, while the starboard systems targeted the second. The main forward guns charged up to destroy the third vessel, all simultaneously, without any conscious direction from the Major. "How is he doing that?" asked Subcommander Yunsuk, the Corvani officer serving as his technical advisor. "I do not know," Inho replied honestly. "I just think about what needs to happen, and the ship makes it happen." The Nexari were beginning to notice the change in their enemy's tactics. Overlord Vekthar studied the battle reports with growing concern. The primitive descendants were fighting with a level of coordination and effectiveness that should have been impossible. "Their ships are responding faster than our computers can track," reported his tactical officer. "They are predicting our movements and countering them before we complete our attacks." Vekthar examined the data more closely. The enemy ships with mixed crews were performing far better than those with single-species crews. Somehow, the combination of human and Corvani was creating something greater than the sum of its parts. "Focus all attacks on the hybrid vessels," he ordered. "Those ships pose the greatest threat to our operations."
But even this strategy was
proving difficult to implement. The human-piloted ships seemed to have an almost supernatural ability to avoid destruction. They would dodge attacks that should have been impossible to detect in time, or would survive damage that should have been fatal. Dr. Sangmi was beginning to understand why. Her research had revealed that the human brain, when connected to Corvani technology, could process information at speeds that approached the limits of the ship's computers themselves. "Is not just faster reflexes," she explained to Admiral Junasu. "The human pilots are somehow accessing the ship's sensor networks directly. They are seeing the battle from multiple perspectives simultaneously." "And the Corvani crew members?" the Admiral asked. "They provide the technical knowledge and system management that humans lack," Dr. Sangmi replied. "The humans provide the intuition and adaptability. Together, they create the perfect fighting unit." The proof of this theory came during the battle for the Corvani colony world of Draktor. The planet was under siege by a massive Nexori fleet, and the defenders were outnumbered 5-1. Major Inho led a squadron of 12 hybrid crewed ships against the enemy force. The odds were impossible, but the human pilots had developed tactics that the Nexari could not counter. Remember, Inho broadcast to his squadron, "Trust your instincts. Do not think about what the ship can do. Think about what you need it to do." The battle that followed was unlike anything seen before in the war. The human Corvani ships moved through space like living creatures, flowing around enemy fire and striking at weak points with deadly precision. Lieutenant Hakjun, piloting one of the escort vessels, found himself facing 3 Nexari ships simultaneously. Instead of trying to outrun them, he did something that no military manual would have recommended. He flew directly toward the largest enemy vessel, using its own bulk to shield him from the other two as he passed beneath the crystalline hull. He fired upward into the ship's weapon ports. The internal explosions tore the vessel apart from within, while the other 2 Nexari ships were left firing at empty space. "Possible," Overlord Vekthar muttered as he watched the battle reports. "Their tactics make no logical sense, yet they are winning." The truth was that human tactics did not need to make logical sense. They were based on instinct, emotion, and the kind of creative thinking that came from generations of survival against impossible odds. By the end of the battle, the Nexari siege fleet had been completely destroyed. Not a single human Corvani ship had been lost, though several had taken heavy damage. "We are learning," Admiral Junasu observed as he reviewed the battle reports. "Every engagement teaches us more about how to use our abilities." Dr. Sangmi nodded in agreement. Nexari have superior technology, but they think in predictable patterns. They cannot adapt to our unconventional methods. And our methods are becoming more unconventional every day, the Admiral added with a smile. The war was far from over, but the momentum had shifted. The descendants of the Veltari were proving that survival skills developed over 50,000 years could overcome even the most advanced technology in the depths of space. Overlord Vecthar was coming to the same conclusion. The primitive descendants were not as primitive as he had believed. They possessed something that the Nexari had never encountered before, the ability to turn weakness into strength, to find victory in impossible situations, prepare for a full-scale assault on both the human and Corvani homeworlds. He ordered his fleet commanders. We will end this war quickly, before they can develop their abilities further. But even as he gave the order, Vecthar felt something he had not experienced. In thousands of years, doubt, the descendants of the Veltari, were proving to be far more dangerous than their ancestors had ever been. The final battle of the war was about to begin. And for the first time in their long history, the Nexari were not certain of victory. 5 years had passed since the end of the Nexari War. President Minho stood on the observation deck of New Veltar Station, watching the construction ships work on the latest colony vessel. The station orbited a beautiful blue world that had been chosen as the symbolic new homeworld for both humans and Corvani. The construction is ahead of schedule, reported his aide, Secretary Jongmin. The new ship will be ready for its mission to the Outer Rim in 3 months. President Minho nodded with satisfaction. The war had ended not with the complete destruction of the Nexari, but with their retreat to the far edges of the galaxy. The crystalline beings had withdrawn after suffering losses they had never imagined possible, promising to return when they were stronger. Any word from the exploration fleets? He asked. Captain Sungwoo reports that his team has found evidence of another colony ship in the Centauri system, Jungmin replied. The wreckage is old, but there are signs that some survivors may have established a settlement on the 4th planet. This was the new mission that had emerged from the war, finding the other descendants of the Veltari, who had scattered across the galaxy 50,000 years ago. The ancient records suggested that dozens of colony ships had been launched, and some of them might have succeeded in establishing civilizations. On the surface of New Veltar, Matriarch the Jinn walked through the memorial garden, where the heroes of the war were remembered. The tall Corvani leader moved slowly, her age showing in the careful way she placed each step. Beside her walked a young human girl named Sumin, the daughter of one of the war heroes. The child had been born after the war ended, and she represented the hope of both species. Tell me again about the ancient ship, Sumin asked, her voice filled with curiosity. Matriarch the Jinn smiled. It was found beneath the waves of your homeworld, little one. It carried the message that brought our peoples together and started the greatest adventure in our history. And now we are family? Sumin asked. Now we are family, the Jinn confirmed. Not just humans in Corvani, but all the children of Veltar, wherever they may be. The memorial garden was filled with visitors from both species, humans and Corvani. Children played together, their laughter echoing off the crystal monuments. It was a sight that would have been impossible to imagine during the dark days of the war. Captain Sungwoo stood on the bridge of the exploration vessel, Starseeker, studying the sensor readings from the planet below. His crew was a mix of humans and Corvani, working together with the natural harmony that had developed during the war. The energy signatures are definitely artificial, reported his science officer, Dr. Kyung-mi. There is some kind of settlement down there, but it is not responding to our communication attempts. Take us into orbit, Captain Sungwoo ordered. We will try a landing party. The planet was beautiful, with red continents and purple oceans. The atmosphere was breathable for both humans and Corvani, and the climate was mild. It would have been an ideal world for a Veltari colony, Captain, called out Lieutenant Jace Home from the communication station. I am picking up a signal from the surface. It is very weak, but it matches the pattern of the ancient Veltari communication protocols. Captain Sungwoo felt his heart race. Could it be possible that they had found living descendants of another colony ship? Put the signal through, he ordered. The main screen flickered, and then showed a face that made everyone on the bridge gasp in amazement. The being was clearly humanoid, but different from both humans and Corvani. It had the basic human facial structure, but with the elongated limbs of the Corvanian skin that had a golden tint. "Greetings, star travelers," the being said in a voice that was musical like the Corvani, but with human emotional warmth. "I am Elder Taiwan of the Veltari colony of Ashara. We have been waiting for you to find us." The discovery of the Ashara colony was just the beginning. Over the following months, exploration fleets found evidence of other Veltari descendants. Scattered across the galaxy, each group had evolved differently, adapting to their new worlds while maintaining the basic genetic heritage of their ancestors. Some had developed advanced technology like the Corvani. Others had remained close to nature like early humans. A few had developed abilities that neither humans nor Corvani possessed: telepathic communication, enhanced physical strength, or the ability to survive in extreme environments. President Minho called a great gathering on New Veltar Station. Representatives from 12 different Veltari descendant groups attended, creating a reunion that had been 50,000 years in the making. "We are no longer alone in the universe," he announced to the assembled delegates. "We have found our brothers and sisters among the stars, and together we are stronger than we ever imagined." The gathering led to the formation of the Veltari Alliance, a peaceful confederation of all the descendant species. They agreed to share knowledge, technology, and resources while respecting the unique cultures that each group had developed. But the alliance was not just about reunion. The threat of the Nexar still existed, and there were other hostile species in the galaxy. The descendants of Veltar would need to work together to protect themselves and the peaceful civilizations they encountered. Dr. Sangmi, now the head of the Alliance Research Council, stood before a gathering of scientists from all the descendant species. Her research into the human-Corvani neural connection had led to breakthroughs that benefited all the groups. "We have learned that our genetic heritage gives us advantages that no single species possesses," she explained. "When we work together, we can achieve things that seem impossible." Proof of this was visible throughout Alliance space. Hybrid crews operated the most advanced ships, while scientists from different groups collaborated on projects that pushed the boundaries of known science. On Earth, the ancient ship that had started it all was displayed in a museum visited by beings from across the galaxy. Children of many species would stand before it and learn about the brave Veltari who had sacrificed everything to save their people. Captain Sun Wu continued his explorations, leading fleets deeper into unexplored space. His mission was not just to find more descendants, but to establish peaceful contact with other species and expand the Alliance's influence. "We are the children of explorers," he often told his crew. "Our ancestors crossed the void between stars to give us life. Now it is our turn to cross the void and give life to the future." As President Minho looked out at the stars from his office, he reflected on how much had changed since that day when Dr. Heonsu first found the ancient ship beneath the waves. Humanity had learned that they were not alone, that they had family among the stars, and that together they could face any challenge. The Nexari were still out there, waiting and planning their return. But when they came back, they would not face the scattered primitive descendants they had fought before. They would face a united alliance of all the children of Veltar, stronger and more determined than their ancestors had ever been. The legacy of the ancient ship lived on in every Alliance vessel that launched into the unknown. In every new world, that was peacefully settled, and in every child who grew up knowing that the stars were not empty but filled with family waiting to be found. The journey that had begun beneath the waves of Earth had become a journey among the stars. And it was only the beginning.